The 2024 car market crash has continued, and this is all excellent news. Just yesterday, new used and wholesale vehicle data was released, giving us more and more insight into where the car market is trending, how car prices lie today in March of 2024, and of course, helping us answer the question of is right now the right time to buy a car? Now, I know just earlier this week, I did a breakdown of the car market focusing on new cars, but in this video, I'm going to more specifically focus on used cars. We're going to be talking about the Manheim Used Vehicle Value Index and the various reports that Manheim & Cox release every single month. We're going to be going over CarGurus Used Vehicle Value Index to see what cars are actually being priced at in the real world. And we're also going to be going over Cars.com listings to go through which vehicle listings are having to be marked down in order to be sold. So let's get started. The Manheim Used Vehicle Value Index was down 0.1% from January of this year, bringing the index as a whole down 13.1% from a year ago. This is actually lower than some of the month-by-month decreases that we've seen in the last 6 to 12 months. While the Manheim Used Vehicle Value Index did go down from January to February, the amount of month-by-month decrease was actually less than what we've seen over the last 6 to 12 months. And so while we did see a decrease was less than normal, at least normal as of the last year or so, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's more of an indicator of this time of year than anything else, but it is still something to note. From January to February, the 3-year-old index, which is basically the index of 3-year-old cars, which is a really good representation of the used market as a whole, that index actually increased by 1.6%. Which is not only more than the overall used market saw, but it's actually more than what the 3-year-old index typically sees this time of year. And MMR retention was at 99.9%, which means that cars are selling for a slight discount from their true MMR values. But that discount is admittedly very small. What I do find really interesting, and this is especially important to note as we, continue throughout March and head into April, is that whenever it came to car sales data and really car market data as a whole, everything increased and trended in the positive direction as February progressed. And I say positive as in they went up, not necessarily they were positive for the consumer. In fact, you could argue this was a negative thing for consumers. But for the most part, car prices went up as February progressed. MMR retention became higher, so discounts were lower, and there was overall more demand in the used car market as we ended February and headed into March. And the reason why this is the case is because of tax return season. As we headed into the second half of February, especially as we headed into March, more and more people got their tax refunds, so people have more money in their pocket to buy things like a used car. And you see this across not only the automotive industry, but almost every single industry. There is more spending whenever people are getting their refunds. And what's interesting about tax refund season this year is that the average tax refund is actually 4.3% higher in 2024 compared to 2023. So the increase in money definitely is reflected in an increase in consumer spending, and we saw that reflection as we headed into March. If we take a look at individual vehicle segments, remember the overall car market is down 13.1% year over year. And you can see that the 13.1% is made up of compact cars, which have decreased by 16.5%, mid-size cars, which have decreased by 15.1%, EVs, which have decreased by 15%, pickups, which have decreased by 14.3%, SUVs 12.8%, and luxury 12%, as well as non-EVs are at 12% as well. But let's head over to CarGurus Used Vehicle Value Index to see what people are actually listing their cars for. So here I've set up the CarGurus Used Vehicle Value Index graph to show roughly about a year's period of time. And you can see that this is reflective here because in that first half of 2023, we actually saw used car prices increase. And then as we headed into the second half of 2023 and of course into 2024, we saw car prices decline at a pretty rapid pace, I will admit. That price decline really became faster as we closed out 2024 and as we begun 2024. And really in the last month, that decline has slowed down, which, we just talked about whenever we were discussing Manheim Used Vehicle Value Index. But you can see that decline represented here in the graph. It becomes a, steep hill and then kind of goes into a much less steep slope. And so you're definitely able to see through this CarGurus Vehicle Value Index that car prices are still going down, but the pace in which they're going down has slowed. Again, you can see that based off of body style, we are seeing price declines across not only the last 30 days, last 90 days, and also year over year as well. And over the course of the last 30 days, convertibles have seen the largest decline, followed by coupes, and then crossover vehicles. If we head on to the different types of makes, you can see that once again, the vast majority of vehicles are seeing price declines in the last 30, 90, and year over year. Honda surprisingly has seen an increase in the last 30 days. Lamborghini has as well. And even Lincoln. Rolls-Royce has increased, as has Mitsubishi and Mercury, but all of the other vehicle makes have seen pretty steady declines in the last year, with the largest declines coming from brands like Tesla, which has seen just under 6% decline in the last 30 days, the Wagoneer, which has declined by 2.74%, Volkswagen, which has declined by 1.52%, Maserati 2.83%, Jeep 1.1%, and Lexus 1.88%, which is actually kind of surprising, and many others seeing declines at under a percentage point. The largest year-over-year declines can be pointed to brands like Tesla, which has declined by 31.36% in the last year. And really, there's no other brand that even comes close to Tesla. The only other automaker that compares with Tesla when it comes to year-over-year depreciation is Polestar, and for some reason, CarGurus actually took Polestar away on this list. It used to be included. It isn't whenever I'm looking at it now, but Polestar probably has declined around the 30% mark, so they are definitely chasing Tesla for the #1 depreciated brand in the last year. But of course, that is to be expected given the fact that the EV market has just taken a beating. But EVs aside, most cars are seeing a 1 to 2% decline in the last 30 days and a 10 to 15% decline in the last year. But of course, there is a big difference between what somebody has listed a car for versus what that car is actually selling for. So in order to gauge what car prices that people are actually paying whenever they buy a car, let's take a look at Cars.com and let's look at some of the cars that are seeing the largest price reductions. So here at Cars.com, I've put in some filters to try to get us a good reflection of the average used car market, something between $10,000 and $40,000, a used vehicle across the entire country with a minimum year of 2019. Now, I've been doing these market reports for a long time, which means that I've been looking at Cars.com at least once per week, if not multiple times per week, for the last probably 1 to 2 years. And one thing that I've noticed over the course of the last year is very large price cuts. Over the course of the last year of making this video series, I would go into Cars.com and it would be very, very common for me to see cars that were reduced in price in the double-digit numbers by 10, 15, sometimes even 20 grand, depending on the car. But whenever I was prepping for this video, the thing that I noticed is that while the vast majority of cars do have price reductions, in fact, I found it difficult to find a car that didn't have a price reduction. What I found instead of seeing these large reductions that I saw, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, is that I instead see more reductions, but the amount being reduced is smaller. And it's also less frequent as well for the majority of makes and models. For example, we have this 2021 Ford Bronco with 28,000 miles, $37,991. This car has been reduced by $8 grand. It's been on the market for 98 days, and these price reductions have kind of come in small increments over the last few months. But this Bronco and this reduction was actually the largest one that I could find. For example, we have this 2020 Acura. This one has 71,000 miles, so a little bit higher mileage than I would like, and it's listed for just below 25 grand. This car has been listed for 23 days, and it's seen just under 4 grand in price reductions. It actually saw a price increase relatively recently, followed by a pretty steep decrease. This 2021 Chevrolet Camaro 1LT with just over 25,000 miles, and it's listed for just under 24 grand. This car has been listed for 93 days, and it's seen $4,000 in total price reductions. Both of those reductions coming the last week or so, with the first reduction coming a couple of months after the car was listed for 3 grand, followed by a $1,000 reduction a couple of days later. This 2020 Kia Seltos with 37,777 miles listed for just under 20 grand. It is advertised to have a $1,000 price drop, and when you look, you can see that this has had a $1,000 price drop. It's been listed for just 2 weeks, and it's seen a price drop just recently. And this 2020 Toyota CHR LE, this car has just over 64,000 miles, and it's listed for just under 19 grand. It is advertised to have a $197 price drop. And whenever you look at the pricing history, you can actually see that it has had a larger price drop than that. It's been listed for 75 days. It has seen $2,992 in price reductions, and it has been pretty much reduced fairly consistently in small increments since it's been listed. So while we are definitely seeing price reductions, and don't get me wrong, a $3,000 or $4,000 price reduction is still a lot. I mean, it can still be 10 to 20% depending on the car, but it isn't as high as what we were seeing in the fall. And the reason why I think that this is the case is because I think that people who are selling cars today are pricing their car right out of the gate lower compared to where people who were selling their cars in, say, fall of last year or even summer of last year. I think that many people who were selling cars right as car prices began to fall last year, they were pricing them as though cars were still worth their 2021 amounts. So somebody would list a car in summer or fall of 2023 with the same pricing structure as, say, 2021 or 2022 whenever the car market was extremely hot. The car wouldn't be able to sell because the car wasn't worth that amount. And so as a result, these car sellers then had to reduce their price by an astronomical amount as well because their car was worth a lot less than what they were trying to sell it for. Whereas today, I think that many of these reductions are taken into account at the point of listing the vehicle, which is why we aren't seeing as large of price reductions, but we are seeing reductions that are more common. This is all to say that the used car market is absolutely falling. The rate at which the car market is falling has slowed, but I do expect that probably will speed up as we head into the summer and late spring months. But the good news is that if you are somebody who's looking to buy a used car, depending on the type of car that you're wanting to buy, now could be a potentially good time to do that. Though I do expect for demand for the used car market to continue to ramp up as we head into the closure of tax season because people get those refunds. They use those refunds on things like cars. But all in all, this is good news. We're down 13.1% from a year ago, and you really can't ask for much more than that. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.